To start things off, I'm one of those Magic players that have been playing for almost 2 decades. I'm sure there are others out there that are in the similar situation as myself. We used to call Commander EDH. We used to play big bombs and stupid dragons with no synergies just because we could. It was a casual format that we played when we weren't playing 60 card formats. This casual format, though, was still played in a competitive way. We still wanted to win. We still tried our best to beat down our opponents and come out on top. We would buy our soul rings that were well over $30 at the time. We got annoyed when someone played Stacks pieces, but we did our best to try and find the maze exit that Stacks created. We also played our tribal decks that may or may not be as strong as other decks at the table, but we still enjoyed playing them. We didn't need any sort of conversations about what we wanted out of our games we were playing. We all knew what we wanted, to sling cards and win games. We specifically built our decks however we wanted. If you want to run silly nostalgia bait cards or pet cards, you can do it. Sometimes that card came in clutch. We didn't have precons for EDH. Whenever a new set came out, we were buying up product like crazy because even our bad cards had a home in Commander. Commander in the present time has changed into something quite different. Players as a whole are constantly choosing which cards they do and don't want to play against. Certain strategies or playstyles are completely off the table for some people, while the one they enjoy playing is what's clearly the best and most fun. Over time, we ended up with the power scale system. This was a 1 through 10 scale of power that determined how strong your deck was compared to another player's deck. In theory, it was a great way to give people a fair and even chance to win any game they were sat down into. There were, however, many problems with this system. The first and foremost of these issues was that no one ever considered their deck below a 5. Precons were considered something around a 5, and nothing really existed below that. Everyone assumed their deck was a 7, and arguments always followed. The days of playing whatever we wanted in whatever game we sat down into were gone. Suddenly, everything was about power. Sure, we always wanted to win, but the average power level of our deck didn't matter. Heck, we always flaunted to our friends when we beat them with our cheaper deck when they had a Gaia's Cradle or other such expensive staple. Now though, it's more about winning than people care to admit. People are always saying that they just want to sit down and have a good time, but at the end of the day, we all still want to win. We just want an excuse to blame our losses on. Of course my Power 5 deck lost to your Power 8 deck. It was rude of you to even play it against me. Suddenly, people who wanted to play their cards they enjoy started to be shunned and ridiculed for their card choices. Oh, you play Mana Crypt? You must be playing CDH. To go along with all these discussions about power, we also had a huge increase of power creep with the inclusion of Commander-specific products. Most of these products would bring into print many staples of the format that were increasingly stronger than anything we played previously. Then we come to our current state of Commander. We have a bracket system that is separated into 5 categories. By this point, I would assume most of you consuming Magic content on YouTube have sunk your teeth into many videos on the topic, so I won't waste either of our time going into every single bracket. Just know that there are 5 brackets from super casual to CDH. Now, my initial reaction to the brackets was mixed. There were some things I enjoyed about it, while other aspects I disliked. After consuming as much content as I humanly can and playing an absurdly large number of Commander games, I can confirm that I greatly dislike the system. Now, before I start getting booed for my negativity,
Boo! Boo! Muck! Boo!
let me explain my thoughts on the bracket system and Wizards of the Coast in general with creating this. Commander is a social format. In general, it's not meant to be played in such a competitive way that other constructed formats are. However, that doesn't mean the goal of the game, winning, isn't still there. Our recent views on Commander and WotC's response has created a format that is based on a player's views and their vibes. When I sit down and want to play what I consider a bracket 3 vibe game, and my opponents do the same, clearly the outcome of the game is completely perfect and our vibes all match up. We're all clearly on the same wavelength. No, of course not. And I'm not stating that WotC has stated that we are either. They've stated and know that everyone's opinion on what a certain bracket's power level will vary. Herein lies the problem. Wizards is putting the onus on us as the players to solve the problems that they have found they don't want to do. Now, I don't blame them. I don't really want to be the person creating rules and having everyone complain to me about it. The reality, though, everyone is still going to complain to you about it. The system is and will never be perfect. All that this has done is created a system where 4 of us are sitting around a table arguing while WotC is sitting there in the background whistling, pretending like they can't do anything about it. It also creates a situation where someone who might honestly feel like their deck is a certain bracket is treated as a bad actor. I really hate this term, by the way, even though they genuinely thought their deck belonged there. This reinforces the concept of people with weaker decks socially bullying people who enjoy playing with stronger cards. Well, how do we solve this then? Honestly, I don't know, but I do have some ideas. First and foremost, bans. I'm sorry, bans are important and I refuse to believe otherwise. Yes, I know people don't like when their fancy, shiny cardboard gets banned, but at the end of the day, we all want our game to be playable and a good experience for everyone. Just removing 20 cards off the ban list and adding them all to the Game Changers list will solve nothing. I do, however, actually like the idea of the Game Changers list. I recently had a stint playing the card game Grand Archive. I actually enjoyed it so much I went to take the judge test after playing for only a few weeks, but failed to pass by about one question. In Grand Archive, they have a watch list. These cards aren't banned or restricted in any format yet, but they do have a tier of how close to a ban they are. The higher up the tiers, the closer to the ban hammer you are. I actually think Wizards should adopt something similar for Magic. We were originally told they didn't want to monitor multiple lists, which is why we never got the banned as commander idea going again. Now, they just threw us a big old 40 card list of no-no cards that they plan to monitor alongside the ban list. Why not just adapt a tiered list for Game Changers? There are multiple ways you could do this. The simplest way, and my personal favorite, is just to have 3 brackets for Commander. Casual Commander, Regular/High Power Commander, and CDH. Game Changers are not allowed at all in Casual. Our current bracket system states that in general, most brackets should be able to play within one bracket of each other. With this logic, most casual decks, bracket 1 to 2 currently, should be fine playing with one another. I also find that most lower bracket 3 decks follow pretty close in line in terms of power level to higher end bracket 2 lists, but there are some bracket 3 decks that are closer to 4. If we just separate Casual Commander and Regular/High Power Commander into 2 separate tiers where Game Changers are allowed in Normal Commander but not allowed in Casual Commander, this solves almost the entirety of the bracketing issue. Most people who enjoy playing casual Magic already don't enjoy Game Changer cards. The ones that would like to play 1 or 2 just sort of have to bite the bullet, as those cards would just essentially be banned cards for them. If they would, however, enjoy playing with those cards, they could play with and at a Regular/High Power Commander table, slot in some of those cards and sit down. This creates a nice and clean separation without all the fuss of X number of Game Changers. Casual Commander also has the concept of Rule 0. Those cards could be added into a casual game of Commander as long as people are fine with it. Would this mean that precons and regular casual decks would be playing against each other? Well, of course. I can say for sure that those precon decks would much rather play against casual decks as opposed to higher power normal Commander decks. Also, something interesting I thought about in regards to precons that have Game Changers in them. Does anyone remember when Stoneforge Mystic was banned in Standard, but there was a precon Standard deck created that had Stoneforge Mystic in it? Well, the crazy thing is, we were allowed to play that precon Standard deck in Standard events as long as we left the entire list untouched. It was literally precon decks versus regular constructed decks. Sure, they had a banned card in their deck, but it didn't matter as the power discrepancy was outweighed by the fact that it had overall less power and a much worse mana base than any other deck they were playing against. Sound familiar? It's extremely similar to precons that come out right now. So yeah, let the precons play against casual Commander decks. They might get their Jessica's Wills or free spells, but they should only get 1 or 2 cards that are of that power. As long as their deck isn't modified, let them go to town. Now, that leaves us with the normal/high power Commander bracket. Honestly, if you're choosing to play in this bracket, you know what you're getting into. We play strong spells, strong combos, and we can go infinite. Think of this as what's currently high bracket 3 to high bracket 4. This bracket would be allowed to play with the Game Changers as well as any unbanned cards that were placed straight into the Game Changers. This also gives us a real chance to test out any cards unbanned and see if they are overperforming or underperforming against other Game Changers that were not currently banned. This also creates an environment for people who enjoy playing combos can play them, and those who just want to play with other powerful cards can play them as well. I feel that this separation between casual and normal / high power commander creates enough separation alone that we don't need 5 different brackets. If we balance around Game Changers, infinite combos, and winning by turn X, this creates a more streamlined gameplay experience where we don't have to worry about X number of Game Changers or being able to combo by X turn. We already know that there's a difference between high power and CDH. If you have to ask if it's CDH, it's not CDH. One other option I had considered while thinking about Grand Archive is having multiple brackets like we currently do, but if we separated Game Changers or watchlist cards into separate tiers as they do in Grand Archive, you could allow specific Game Changer cards into different brackets. Current bracket 4 could play any of them, bracket 3 could only play the Game Changers of the tier below them, etc. This could place extremely strong Game Changers like Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe, and Mana Vault into bracket 4 exclusively, while bracket 3 could play Game Changers such as Trouble in Pairs or Jeska's Will, for example. This could also lead to any new cards being added to the Game Changers list, either from currently banned cards or new current non-Game Changers cards being playable only in select brackets. While I think this is less likely to happen, as I think it creates more work than Wizards of the Coast would like to do, I do think it's also a viable option. You could also do something similar in the first option, where only CDH can play specific Game Changers and regular / high power commander players can't. Both of these options can create a more solid rules foundation that allows for people who like the strict rules or boundaries a place to play within them, while also allowing casual players a place to play while also being able to rule zero things in their casual games. A solid rules foundation and ban list makes for much less confusion for newer players and less conflict of interest between casual and high power players. No one likes when their shiny cardboard is banned, but we also love playing this game and we want to have a good time sharing the hobby we love. Thanks to those of you who stuck around until the end. Would this version work? Is placing casual players together into their own group too wide of a net? I for one feel that the hard separation is something needed, especially if we do unbans such as Primeval Titan. If you enjoyed my content, feel free to stick around with a subscribe and comment below with your opinions on the bracket system.